The average property price in Leicester over the last 12 months is £291,000. That is a 9.6% decrease from the previous 12 months. So is the market in for a crash? Watch this video and find out. Leicester's housing market has been incredibly robust over the last 10 years when we've had low interest rates and things have been going well. There have been little troughs where the market may have dipped a little bit, but generally speaking, for landlords and house sellers alike, it's been quite a good time, and buying and renting has been very, very tricky. But is that about to change? The housing markers and matters around it matter for absolutely everybody, whether you're a renter, a landlord, a home seller, a home buyer, because ultimately we all need somewhere to live. So what is going to happen with the market over the next 3 or 4 months as we move into 2025? Is the market going to crash? How will that impact you? Why is it going to do what it's going to do? So unless you've had your head in the sand for the last year or two, you'll know that interest rates have increased quite a lot in that time since Liz Truss's big announcements just after the Queen passed away. So that's one thing that we do need to look at and think, is that the only reason why the market could crash? Well, no, it's not. Interest rates are a huge contributing factor, but also affordability is really at an all-time low for people. It's more expensive to live, generally speaking, which means you've probably got less disposable income to spend on things like housing, as in your betterment of your housing. You've got less money to spend on leisure, less money to spend on nice days out and food and all the things you like doing. So does that then mean that people will cut back on the property that they're looking to buy to have a better lifestyle? And although this final issue doesn't mean there's a crash coming, it is a very good indicator on what the market is going to do. There are 20% more houses on the market right now than there were this time last year. If there is more supply on the market than there is demand for those properties, then prices will come down, but that doesn't mean that it's going to crash. I've been in the estate agency 16 years and I've only seen one crash, and it's pretty much when I first started, and it does not feel like that at all. Just then, in 2008 and 9, there were stacks of houses available and literally zero buyers for those houses. That is not the case now. It's been much more gradual in terms of what's been happening with the marketplace. So that is one thing that then could allow us to avoid a crash. It's not been instant bad news that's shocked the market. Let's consider the current state of the market. Average asking price in Leicester for properties at the minute is £228,000. It takes into account all property bought by first-time buyers, people with mortgages, cash buyers, everything. But it's first-time buyers that really drive the market, and they're paying £208,000 on average for property in Leicester at the moment. One thing we are seeing, which is extremely different to what we've seen over the past 5, 6, 7 years, is first-time buyers now. Those semi-detached homes, those 3-bed semis that are the core of the Leicester housing market, have become a bit more out of reach for them, because if they're spending on average £208,000 and the semi-detached house price currently sits at £267,000, it's quite obvious to see that there's something not quite right there, and maybe the market has just slipped away from first-time buyers a little bit, and it maybe needs to retract just a touch to make it more affordable for these first-time buyers coming to the market in Leicester. The good news is Leicester is a very, very robust city. There's a lot of money here, and the place itself does very, very well. So I've got a very good diverse demographic, which means a lot of people do want to live in the city itself. And we've seen prices in the city increase astronomically compared to some areas of the county over the last 5, 6 or 7 years, as people have migrated into the city for work and to be closer to family as well. And it's factors like that, people wanting to live here and wanting to still buy property and being able to afford to still buy property, which could again avoid any potential property crash. Where's the best place to live? The cheapest postcode to live in the city itself is LE3, where the average price is £255,000. Incredibly, that's about £30,000 to £35,000 cheaper than the very expensive postcodes of LE2, LE4 and LE5. So it's the west side of the city. If you're looking for value for money, that is where you're going to get it. LE3 stretches from Foss Park in the south up to Anstey Lane in the north, and it then changes to LE4, and that picks up then Birstall, Thurmaston, as well as the areas inside the city itself. However, we can talk about sales all we like. but it's the rental market that guides house prices, because the more rent is charged, the more likely investors will buy property at a higher price. But then on the flip side, investors are being absolutely battered by the government at the moment with extra stamp duty, extra tax, extra legislation. So it's a very strange place to be, with rents increasing because the supply and demand is in that market out of sync again. There's not enough property on the market to rent for the people that want to rent, but then not as many investors are buying now because they've been put off because of all these different things that the government have brought in, which then means there's less property available, so rents go up. It's a really weird circle we're in, and people will keep buying property to rent it out, but they'll want higher rents for it now. And all that does is force rents up. And as rents increase, more people want to get out of rented, so we'll keep wanting to buy property, even though mortgages have increased as well. If they're not that much more than someone's paying on rent, they'll go and buy. Average rent in Leicester at the moment is £938 a month. And if you think most of the rental market is at that lower end, terraced houses, flats, apartments, that is quite a large figure when people can be buying 3-bed semis for probably in the region of £1,100 to £1,200 a month on a normal mortgage from what I've seen over the last few months. So to answer your question, are we in for a housing market crash in Leicester? I don't think we are, no. Just because, although the supply and demand is out of sync at the minute and prices may drop a little bit because there's more houses on the market, it feels like we're in a really stable place at the moment, a bit like sort of 2011, 12, 13, 14, where house prices did not move that much over that period of time. It was a really nice market to work in. Everybody knew where they stood, and I feel like we're back to a similar sort of spot now, except we're probably about 100 grand higher on average than where we were back then. Mortgages are just about affordable still, people are still wanting to buy, rental market is still very, very buoyant, and as I've already said, that will continue to fuel and inflate the housing market somewhat. So although we may be in for a bit of a retraction, I don't think we're in for a crash. However, that is just my opinion on it. If you've got other opinions and have got anything you'd like to say, comment, anything at all, please put it in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. I'll answer what I can. I'd love to catch up with you soon.